And let's go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Terry Eichel. I am the Executive Director for the Interreligious Eco Justice Network. We are a faith-based environmental organization in Connecticut, and we work with religious communities on environmental issues such as climate change, toxic pollution, and biodiversity loss. We are also the Connecticut affiliate for the Interfaith Power and Light Network that has state affiliates across the country. If you are joining us from another state, uh, then I urge you to investigate if there is an IPL where you live. They are great. However, I want to highlight this webinar is specifically targeted to Connecticut. So if you're from another state, this might not be that useful. Anyway, this evening we are presenting Effective Advocacy, how to advocate for the issues you care about. I'd like to first open with IREGen's Land Acknowledgement Statement. We acknowledge that Connecticut, Algonquin for land on the Tidal River, is the traditional home of Mohegans, Pequots, and many other tribes. We are grateful for our Native people's care for their home and will strive to preserve it for the next 7 generations. I wanted to do this webinar for a while because we are now in the legislative session in Connecticut and things happen very fast and it can be a little bit confusing. And so I thought this webinar would really help clear up some of the confusion. And now I just want to say more than ever, all of our efforts really matter. Everything that we can do at the local and the state level to help our planet will make a difference, does make a difference, from reducing our carbon emissions to reducing our waste, from planting trees, native trees and plants, to supporting strong environmental policy. So advocacy is critically important. I also want to highlight IREGen's I Care About Climate and Creation postcard campaign we're doing right now. We're asking houses of worship to sign up to send postcards. Each person is asked to send 3 postcards, one to the governor, one to their state rep, and one to their state senator. And so the Connecticut legislative session has just started, so we're focusing on our state, not on the federal. But when you sign up, I will send you the postcards you need, the postcard stamps, and I'll get some suggested messaging to get you started. After this evening's presentation, I will also I'll send out the presentation. I'll also send out the link to sign up for the postcard campaign if you're interested in doing that. So I'm going to walk us through the Connecticut General Assembly website, how a bill becomes a law, and I'll also do a moderated question and answer session. So if you would like to put your questions in the chat or the Q&A, and actually let me make sure I have enabled the chat. Wait, it's over here. Everyone. Okay, there we go. I think it's enabled. All right. So a little bit about how our Connecticut legislative session functions. We alternate every other year between a long session and a short session. So 2025, we're in a long session. It started January 8th. It goes to June 4th. The bills are introduced in 2 ways. An individual legislator during a long session can propose a bill to the relevant committee, and then the committee can vote to actually draft the language of the bill. So when the legislator proposes it, it's really just a concept of what they would like to see happen, and the committee has to take it on and write the actual language. The other way a bill can come into being is if the committee decides to draft the bill themselves. It's then called a committee bill, and then the bill is sort of this fully drafted bill. Once that happens and the bill is drafted, it gets a number. It is either a House bill number, HB, or it is a Senate bill, SB. And then once that occurs, then the next thing that has to happen is it needs to be scheduled for a public hearing. And the public hearing is really our opportunity to talk to legislators on that committee about the bill, let them know if we support or oppose the bill. You can always obviously contact your legislator, but the public hearing is really the best opportunity to do that. So if the bill is proposed and drafted but never gets raised for a public hearing, it will die. But once it gets its public hearing, you will get your opportunity to testify, and I'm going to walk you through how to find your legislator, how to navigate the committee page, how to find a bill and how to submit written testimony and what to expect when if you decide to testify as well. So the public hearing is held and people testify, they submit written testimony. The committee takes that all back, they consider it, they think their thoughts. And then the next thing that has to happen is the committee leadership actually needs to schedule it for a vote. So the bill can be raised and get a hearing, but if it doesn't get scheduled for a vote in time, then the bill will die. But if it gets scheduled for a vote, then there's a vote. If the bill passes, it obviously is it passes that out of that particular committee. Obviously, it fails, it fails. If it passes, that is called being a joint favorable report. It is a joint report because there are representatives and senators on all of the committees, so it's a joint committee. And a favorable report just means it has passed out of that committee. Once it leaves that committee, it can either go to the chamber where it originated for a vote, or what often happens is it will go to another relevant committee. So if you have a climate bill that starts in the environment committee, but there's some sort of energy piece in it that needs to be considered, it may go to the energy and technology committee. And then that same process has to happen again. It needs to be raised, it needs to have a hearing, it needs to be voted on. And if those things don't happen, the bill will die. And the reason I keep saying like the bill will die if these things don't happen is there are actually so many times when the bill can die. There's so many times where if action isn't taken in time, the bill doesn't survive the session. And sometimes we think like, oh, the bill got through the environment committee, woohoo, we're almost there. And really, we're quite far away. But so say it goes through all of the relevant committees, it passes, we're very excited, getting closer to the finish line. The next thing that happens after that is it goes to the Legislative Commissioner's Office, which is this nonpartisan office of lawyers. They write the final version with all of the legal language. They incorporate all of the amendments that were passed by the committees to make sure everything is legal. It also goes to the Office of Fiscal Analysis to find out if the bill is going to cost anything. If it costs something, it's going to get what's called a fiscal note. And sometimes just a fiscal note can be enough to kill a bill because sometimes legislators say, I love this idea, but we don't have any money in the budget. But sometimes they have a sort of a pre-arranged agreement. You can spend X, on this bill, but not anymore. But once it has, sometimes they'll get a fiscal note, sometimes it won't have a fiscal note. And then finally it goes for a final legislative analysis from the Office of, hang on a second, the Office of Legislative Research. So once those hurdles have been passed, then it goes to the chamber where initiated. So the House bill, again, will go to the House, and the House leadership needs to raise it for debate and a vote. And then if it passes there, then it goes to the Senate, the next chamber, where the Senate leadership needs to raise it for debate and a vote. If it passes the Senate, then it goes to the governor's office, where he can either sign it, veto it, or do nothing, and it will pass into law. I think after about 10 or 14 days. So that is a very general process. I put in the chat already a more detailed how a bill becomes a law. That is a link from the Legislative Commissioner's Office. Gives you a little bit more detail. And then the other link that is in the chat is a webinar that the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters did last session. Very similar to this, but I wanted to include it because their webinar was later in the session, so there was actually just more to look at in terms of where the bills were. So, but I want to do this one a little bit earlier because everything's happening now and I wanted you to understand what the website looks like. So let's go to the website. I'm going to share my screen and we'll go here. And here we are. Hopefully everyone can see this. Joe, I will put the links in the chat. Oh, you don't see it in the chat. Okay, hang on a second. You know what? I'll make sure I do that in the Q&A. Thank you very much for that, though. Sorry. So now we're looking at the homepage. This is a Connecticut General Assembly homepage. This is where the magic happens. And you can see over here, you've got several drop downs. The representation drop down is where you will be able to find your legislators. The committee drop down is where you can find all your committees. And over here on the right, next to that big picture here, is broadcast media. So this is where you can watch what's happening. The House stream is the House floor. The Senate stream is the Senate floor. The YouTube streams are for all of the committees. They each have their own YouTube channel, so you can watch their public hearings and their meetings there. And then CTN is sort of the generalized, I think they show everything. So let's actually, let me close this. So scrolling down, you can find their schedule of events. This is done every week. It's refreshed every week, and you can see they list everything from committee meetings to public hearings to legislative breakfasts to press conferences. And they have a very busy schedule. The legislators are very busy, part-time legislators, and they are working constantly. And you can see we have an Environment Committee meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. So I'm going to click on this because this has lots of information in it, or at least key information. So you've got the date, the time. It's an Environment Committee public hearing. You've got the location. It's going to be in the Legislative Office Building, room 2C, and it will also be available on Zoom. You can also see it at their YouTube live, their Environment Committee YouTube stream. You can click to view their agenda here, and you can view testimony and speaker order, and you can add this event to your calendar. So I'm going to click out of this, and we're going to go find our legislators first, but we will definitely get back to that piece. So here we go. Probably a lot of you know how to find your legislator, but if you don't, or if you have someone who doesn't know how to do it, here's how you do it. So you're going to click on the representation and go down to find your legislators, and it takes you to a page where you just put in your address. The drop down is all of the towns. I'm going to select my address, and the street name. I'm going to select my street name. They're all drop downs for every single town, and then the number, and click find. And there you go. Representative Brian Lanou is my representative. Senator Heather Summers is my senator. And then I also have my federal representation, which obviously are senators Blumenthal, Murphy, and I live in the 2nd district with Representative Joe Courtney. If you click on their names, you get taken to their page. And there I could contact Representative Lanou, which I will definitely do later on in the session. So that is how you find your legislators. You can also do that directly from the home page. If you scroll down to the bottom, there is another box to do that right here. And it is literally the same process: town, street name, number, find, and there are all of your folks. And so if you have someone who doesn't know how to find their legislator, this is super helpful. A lot of times people don't necessarily realize that we have a state legislature. If you ask them who their representative is, they will tell you who their congressional representative is at the federal level. But as we know, a lot of change and a lot of good things can happen here on state level. So let's look at the committees, because this is where a lot of stuff happens, especially in the beginning. So if you click down here, we're going to go to the Environment Committee. All these different committees, and you can click, and here is the Environment Committee. For iRegen, for these environmental groups, we spend a lot of time in the Environment Committee or the Energy and Technology Committee. Sometimes you have bills that go through children or housing, but mostly it's environment and energy and technology. So here we have the Environment Committee, a little bit about what its charter is. To the left here, we have their contact information, their room. You can definitely stop by, their phone number you can call. This link to submit public hearing testimony, we will get back to that, but that's a real quick link to submit testimony for bills that you care about. This is honestly very, very helpful. Committee membership. And if you click this drop down, boom, get everyone on the Environment Committee. Senator Rick Lopes from New Britain and Farmington is co-chair with Representative John Michael Parker, who is represents, I believe, Durham and Madison. They're co-chairs of the Environment Committee. You've got their vice chairs, their ranking members, and then all of the other members. You see, it's a big committee. They do a lot. They have a ton of bills out right now. And so What's great is if your legislator is also on this committee, that's even more important that you testify, because not only are you talking to the whole environment committee, you're also talking to your representative or senator. And if you, again, if you go to their, you click on their name, you can generally go right to their, oh, John Michael has it hooked up to his email. Okay. Sorry, wait a minute. Okay, we'll go to Senator Loeb's. There we go. Senator Loeb's, Deputy Majority Leader, goes right to his page. I guess if you click on Representative Parker's, you get his email. But generally, I think you could probably get there from here to his website. That makes sense. So that is committee membership, and it's great to see who's on there, especially if you have a friend who lives in a district for one of these folks, you can kind of give them a heads up. Part of the reason we are doing our postcard campaign is that former Representative Christine Palm told us at the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters Environmental Summit that if legislators hear from 7 people on a topic, they think they're being deluged. So that's why we're organizing people to write postcards specifically to their legislators and the governor to let them know they care about climate change. So over here under For the Record, this is the history of everything the committee is doing. And because it's so early on in the session, there's not a ton in here, but there's some. And 2 of the most important things for us right now are their meetings and their public hearings, because that's where a lot of decisions are being made. So let's go to their meetings. So committee meetings, you go to agendas and you can see what meetings they have had and what they discussed. Let's look at their last meeting, January 24th, Friday. It was a week ago. And you've got proposed bills. Now remember, proposed bills are from individual legislators proposing bills to draft for the committee. So this is a bill that they're hoping these proposed bills will be drafted as committee bills. I would like to highlight proposed bill, Senate Bill number 887, is an act exempting certain cookware from PFAS requirements. Now you can see this is a live link. So if I click on this, it will take me directly to the bill page. And here we are on the bill page. Proposed SB number 887, session year 2025. Just a little bit of detail on what it is, the title and the sort of summary. This key is helpful. Orange means that it was acted on today. Blue means the action was 2 to 4 days old. Black means it's 5 days or older. If you have a bill that you care about and it hasn't been acted on in a while, it is a good idea to call the legislator or the committee leadership and ask them to take action. Because sometimes things just die because action doesn't happen. However, you can see on the 24th down here in the Environment Committee, they voted to draft this bill. Now, here's the thing about this particular bill. Last year, a unanimous bipartisan bill passed to ban PFAS from our products in Connecticut. So this act is exempting cookware from PFAS requirements because there's apparently a different molecule that has been added, so the PFAS formulation is different. This is disappointing. We certainly know the past formulations of PFAS are very harmful to public health and the environment. They are forever chemicals. I don't feel comfortable that a new form of PFAS is going to be any better, and I certainly would not want to add it to cookware. So, you know, this is a bill that we're watching and not happy about, because we really thought that it was great that we had a bipartisan, unanimous bill passed last year to ban this harmful chemical from our products, and I'd like to see it stay banned. So this is something that we'll be watching very closely. And here's something also great about this bill page. So you're on the page for the bill, you can add it to My Bills. See this button right here? So My Bills is sort of your own personal profile on the CGA website where you can track bills. So I'm going to add it to My Bills. I'm going to just click that. And I already have an account. If you don't have an account, it will prompt you to enter your email and create a password. But I just click that I'm not a robot, and I log in, and then I think I have to go back and add it to My Bills again. So here we go. Now it's added to My Bills. So now it says this bill has been added to my bills. Do you wish to go there? I'm going to click yes so you can see it. And now you can see the bills that I have added so far that I'm following. An act adding certain plants to the invasive plants list, an act concerning the burning of medical waste, and this PFAS requirement bill. So these are my bills. Now, every time something happens with these bills, I will get a notification, which is really helpful because there are so many different bills happening now. It will be very helpful for me to know what is happening there. So let me go back to the Environment Committee, and now we're going to look at the. I'll look at our public. Goodness. There we go. Okay. All right. So that's the meetings. Those are the meetings. You can also read the minutes of the meetings here. Public hearings. So let's go to the public hearing. So we actually have a public hearing tomorrow, January 31st. And here is the agenda. And again, these documents always open up to PDFs, but they always have live links. So now, scrolling down, you can see what actual bills are getting the public hearing. And so they're talking about, I think they're actually talking about 11 bills tomorrow. One of them is an act prohibiting the practice of shark finning. IRUGN submitted testimony in support of that and in support of the adding certain plants to the invasive plants list. So from this page, you can register to speak, to testify, you can submit written testimony, and you can click to watch it live. So I'm going to, generally, you have to register to speak by 3 p.m. the day before. So I'm a little surprised this is still live, but it's good because you can see it. So the webinar, it looks just like a Zoom registration. First name, last name, your email address, your city, your postal code, state, and then you go down. If you do have to let them know if you're representing a state or municipal entity, and you select whether or not you are testifying remotely or in person. In person is obviously a very powerful way to testify. However, it's not always feasible, especially if it's a super long meeting. So the Zoom remote option has actually been great for a lot of folks to be able to participate. Once you sign up, usually, like I said, you usually have to sign up by 3 p.m. the day before. Around 5-ish, they will release the speaker order. The speaker order always prioritizes the officials and legislators first. So Commissioner Katie Dykes typically speaks first on these environmental bills, and she can speak for a really long time because they will ask her a ton of questions. And then legislators will speak, and then other agency officials for relevant bills will speak. So the first portion of just like the first, like say, handful of folks can take 2 to 3 hours because they have so many questions. Once they get through that period, then they go to sort of the general public. That's everybody else. That is lobbyists and advocates and regular folks. And all of us only get 3 minutes. They may ask you questions if they want to, hear more about it, more about your perspective or your knowledge. But generally you get 3 minutes. So I highly encourage you, when you're writing your testimony, time it, because they will cut you off, and make it as personal as you can. Tell them why you care about these issues. Include your name and your address, and then tell them why. Are you a grandparent? Are you a college student? Do you work in the field and you have really relevant personal experience? That's always really, really good information to have. And that is very powerful. So it's always good, even if you testify in person, that's great. You can also submit written testimony along with your testifying, in person or remotely. Or if you can't testify, if you're not going to be available, submitting written testimony is also great. So let's click on this link. So you go here, and that submit written testimony link brings you here. First name, last name. If you have a title or an organization, if applicable, you put it there. Select the hearing date. And when you do that, you get a whole list of different bills. And if you want to submit testimony for more than one, you hold the control key and you can select more than one. Select supports, opposes, or general comments. And then to do your testimony, they prefer uploading a file. PDF files are preferred. Microsoft Word are accepted. And that's great. If you've got time to write out a few paragraphs and give some detail, that's terrific. However, if you just want to say, listen, I really care about this issue, then you can click type in my testimony and you can type it in directly there. Please include your name and your address, even if just your town, but really name and address, and then just a couple sentences on why you support or oppose the bill. I've seen some testimony where the person is anonymous and just saying, I support this bill. And I don't know how useful that is because there's really no way to track if the person even lives in Connecticut. So I don't know if they can really even pay attention to it. So name, address, just a couple sentences. If you're busy, but you want to get your you know, your support or opposition in, this is a really great way to do it. So let's back out of that, and I'm going to show you the other way to submit. Let's get back to the Environment Committee. All right, here we go. So remember how I showed you there's this link, Submit Public Hearing Testimony. So that's very quick, right? And here we are back there. So again, if you want to submit testimony really fast, that link right here, right under the phone number is terrific. So now, if you want to see the speaker order, it shows up in a couple different places. Under testimony, the Environment Committee, click testimony by hearing date, and you will see all of the different testimony, which can be actually really, really helpful. For instance, like Lori Brown is testifying on this bill. You know, if you want to know what Connecticut League of Conservation Voters is saying in support of this bill, I think that's a shark fin bill. That's really helpful because these are great advocates. Up here is the speaker order, and this is where you find out where you are. The general public piece is done completely randomly by a lottery, so there's no way to know until you see the speaker order, even where you might be in the list. I apologize for the very small, let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Okay, so that's a little bit better. So you can see Commissioner Katie Dykes is first. There are 11 bills. She will probably speak for a while, and then followed by some state senators and other legislators. And then we get into the advocates. Now, some of these advocates may speak for 20 minutes because they'll do their 3 minutes, and then the committee members will recognize that they have a certain level of expertise and they'll ask them more questions. A lot of times, however, they just thank you for your testimony and you go on your merry way. You can see this is long. And this is honestly part of the reason I like the Zoom option is that if it's really long and you're at the end and you really don't know when you're going to go, you can put this on, you can enter the meeting at any point, and be in the Zoom meeting. They won't promote you to a panelist until about 2 people before you. And then they allow you to speak when it's your turn, and then you go off. But you can enter at any time, and you can kind of track where you're going, how fast it's moving along. So, but you can see this is actually 75 people. It'll be a decent sized hearing, but it won't be crazy. I've definitely seen public hearings that have like 175 people. Those go into the night. It's very late night. But those are very complex bills, sometimes with like very strong feelings. These particular bills on the hearing tomorrow are very simple bills, very straightforward. There'll obviously be conversation around them, but they're not going to be nearly as sort of complex as some of the other ones that will come up later. So that's a speaker bill, the speaker order. And again, I mean, really I think the gold standard, of course, is to be in person to testify. There's just something so powerful about being there. However, it really is great if Zoom and remote is your option, it's much better to do that than not testify. So here's the other way to find out all the details. Remember how we found this committee public hearing? We're going to click this. And then remember, there's all this information. You can view the agenda. and you can view the testimony in the speaker order, and it's late enough in the day, obviously we know that it's available. So you can see all the testimony and the speaker order. Again, usually you have to register to speak by 3 p.m. the day before. I want to say you usually have to submit your testimony by 5 p.m., but maybe I'm wrong. But definitely has to be by the time the hearing starts. I mean, you can contact people after that, but it won't be officially like logged in as testimony if you miss the deadline before the hearing. So it's always good to try and be a little early on that. Good. Great. So now this one last thing, we'll see if there are any questions anywhere, is down here, this little toggle that says bills. This is great. Once you know the bill number, you can actually enter this in and see, you can enter in the bill number and go directly to the bill page. And yep, this is shark finning. Prohibiting the practice of shark finning. And here you can see, like, the public hearing is scheduled for January 31st. It was scheduled on the 27th, so it was just a couple days ago, so it's still blue. And that tells you that it's 2 to 4 days old, this action. And you can see this already has a few co-sponsors, Representative Gresco, Representative Wood, Representative Manapace. The climate bill from last year had, I think, more co-sponsors than any other bill. So the fact that it did not get raised in the Senate was so disappointing because it was a very popular bill and it would have passed. So hopefully we will get a really strong climate bill and a really strong resiliency bill passed this year. But I really like this quick bill search. Once you know the bill numbers, you can really get in there quickly. But also the My Bills option is terrific for tracking important bills. So that is sort of the nuts and bolts of following a bill, finding your legislator, finding your committee, finding a meeting, looking at their agenda, finding a public hearing, looking at their agenda, submitting testimony, testifying. I think the most important thing to do is keep it personal and understand that they really do pay attention when one of their constituents is contacting them. They definitely take notice of that. So I'm gonna stop the share. You know, actually, no, does anyone have any questions? Let me see. Okay, let me see if I can get those links again. I'm gonna put them in the chat again. Oh, you know, I'm sending it to myself. Okay, let me try again. There we go. All right. Any questions? Okay, Randall, let me all right, Randall, what's your
Hello.
question?
Hi, thank you for recognizing me. I'll turn my, because I can't turn my video on. I know that statutorily, committees are required to post notice of public hearings 5 days ahead of time. And that's calendar days, so that can include a weekend. Is there any way to get more of a heads up than that in the process?
So, you know, sometimes we hear like sort of rumors, but like they don't it, it's it's not final until you see it on the website.
Mhm.
It's definitely, it's a little frustrating because you're right, it can happen so like last minute and you feel like you're just trying to, you know, get everyone organized and that sort of thing.
But you can sign up to testify before the hearing date is announced, right?
I don't think so, no.
Oh,
Yeah,
That
I think you
makes
have
it
to see when the hearing is and then register to speak at it.
it's a mad scramble.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, and we spend a lot of time sort of thinking like, okay, this is a really big bill, or this is a simple bill, so maybe it'll go next week, whereas a much more complex bill that might go in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm working on a bill that's going before judiciary this session. It has made their list of bills to be raised, and I'm trying to orchestrate, a dozen organizations, coalition partners to testify. And I'm encouraging them all to, get their testimony lined up in advance. But it seems like, people seem to react to deadlines, and that may not happen until there's a hearing date.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is helpful, although the part of the problem too is that sometimes you can have a concept of a bill, but you don't know necessarily what's in it. So you can write testimony, but then if there's something in there that you need to respond that isn't exactly what you were hoping for, or it's something new that you want to support, so you
Yeah.
wind up having to see the bill in its sort of semi-final form, at least what you'll be testifying about at the hearing, and then responding to that.
So we actually had a team at Yale Law draft the actual statutory language that we've been distributing. There's no guarantee, of course, that the committee will take up that language. Is there anything that you think we can do besides, continuing to send it out to promote that language?
I think no, that's really all you can do, is just continuing to talk to the legislators about why your language is the language that they need to take up. They have so many bills in front of them, and they hear from so many different perspectives, that you really kind of do have to sort of make the case for them to take up any language that you want to see. Courtney is asking me, will IREGN be giving us a heads up for hearings scheduled for bills you think are important that we should pay attention to, or are you leaving that to us? I will definitely be doing as much, giving you as much of a heads up as I can. I know that House Bill 5004 is coming back as the climate bill. Senate Bill 9 will be the climate resiliency bill. Um, Other bills that I'm going to be following are the 887, the PFAS bill. There is a bill to uh, basically get rid of the public benefits charge, which is a huge threat to the energy efficiency and clean energy programs that we have in the state. So those are some off the top of my head, but I think there will also be a couple solar bills. Um, but so yes, I will give you as much of a heads up as I can. However, if you see things that you also want to follow, um, then create an account, create a My Bills account, and then you can it'll alert you and you'll be able to follow along yourself. Thanks, Courtney. Any other questions in there? Let me see. Oh, wait, there's a Q&A. For in-person testimony, Suzanne wants to know any suggestions on handling questions from legislators if you don't know the answer, or if the questioning is unfriendly or hostile. Yes, that is a really good question. So if you don't, I will say, you know, sometimes it is okay to say, I don't know the answer to that, but I would like to defer to the advocates at Save the Sound or League of Conservation Voters, or, one of those, because they have these policy experts that is what they do all day. And that's why bringing it back to your own personal experience is really, really helpful, because if you don't know the answers, you don't have to know the answers, but you do know that climate change is increasing, and we see more and more extreme weather, and it's a threat, and you care about the future for your grandkids or something like that. If the questioning is unfriendly or hostile, and I will say that has happened to me on occasion, it is very off-putting. I was very, very surprised, but I just kind of kept my cool. Um, and the questioning, it wasn't even really asked in good faith. It was very much gotcha type of questioning, so I was actually completely caught off guard, because I wasn't expecting that type of questioning. But I just kept my cool, and sort of explained why. I just kept explaining why I supported the bill that I was supporting, and it eventually got to the point where you could see the other committee members were embarrassed by their colleague. So just keep your cool, and and keep reiterating sort of why you care. But I will say that, I mean, a negative experience. I've been doing this for several years. That was the first time that it ever went sideways at all. Usually, because I work with a religious community, they're just curious and interested in hearing how these programs are impacting houses of worship and people of faith and religious communities and that sort of thing. So they're very interested in hearing, especially if there's a house of worship in their district that I can say, oh, so and so, they just got solar and they're just so thrilled with the program and how it worked out. Or, oh, this church, in Hartford just replaced all of their lighting and the energy efficiency program was so beneficial. They're saving X, thousands of dollars a year in their electric bill that now can go to help people in their community. They definitely listen to stuff like that. So, any other questions? Randall?
Hi, one more question.
Sure.
I know that each committee, I think, sets the time limit for testimony. Judiciary is 3 minutes. So clearly, we want to present testimony in that 3 minutes that stimulates a lot of questions because the Q&A part of it can go on indefinitely. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. I once I was like the next person to speak, and then the person in front of me was someone who worked for like some sort of lobbying organization, and he spoke for like 45 minutes. So I was like, so yeah, I mean, you could definitely have make your provide you can finish with, if anyone has questions, I'm happy to take them. The other thing you can do is, if you know a legislator on the committee, you can kind of email them and say, hey, if I don't get to this piece in my testimony, I would love it if you could ask me a question about this, and sort of
Oh,
feed them the
that's a
question.
great
They
tip.
might possibly do that. Oh,
Yeah.
Barbara, you have a question? Here, let me allow you to talk. Barbara, what's your question? Oh, you're muted.
Unmuted. Okay, so I'd like to know a little bit more about the PFAS legislation that you said passed last year. I really don't know anything about it. I'd like to know if, like what products it's in, coming into in our state. Is it in my mattress? Is it in my furniture? Where is it, and is it still coming in? So I'd like a little more detail about that. So where can I?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, and I will refer, let me refer you to Ann Hewlick at Clean Water Action, because she's really been the leader on the PFAS for several years now. So she'll definitely be able to answer questions. And in fact, I will put her email in my follow-up email to everyone tonight. But basically, PFAS is a class of about 10,000 different chemicals
Right.
that are essentially, they are a degreasing agent, so they make things not stick to other things. So if you
Yeah.
have carpet, if you have stain resistant carpet or waterproof clothes or non-stick cookware,
Right.
PFAS is probably in there. And so the first thing they did was ban it in firefighting foam, and then last year uh, the committee raised a bill to ban it in all products, like all of them.
In Connecticut, you mean?
In Connecticut, yeah. And so the first year had been firefighting foam, and then I think the next year they did food packaging. So it stopped being, they started saying you can't have it in, when you get Chipotle, you can't have PFAS in that. And then last year they banned it in everything, but almost immediately started talking about a carve out for cookware, which was disappointing. And I guess the reasoning is that there is a slightly different formulation that's different, and yada yada.
Right. Okay.
I am not a chemist, so I can't speak to that formulation, but I do know that all the other iterations of PFAS are forever chemicals and they're harmful. And so I hope that this bill is defeated this year.
What was the name of the person in Clean Water Action?
Ann Hewlick, Hulick.
Okay.
She is great. She is
Okay.
awesome. She's at Clean Water Action. Let me see if I can find her email right now.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. You'd think I have it memorized.
I noticed that PFAS is in the the news that I find online in emails. I never see it on nightly news.
It is, and the thing is, like, people are very aware. It is a forever chemical.
I
It
know.
gets into drinking water. We did several tests last year, to in water sources around Connecticut. I did them in Groton, New London, Ledyard, and Norwich. And out of the 4 sites I tested, 3 of them had extremely high levels of PFAS.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you did that.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, it was super helpful. Margaret wanted to know, when products are banned in Connecticut, does that mean they can't be sold here, or they can't be manufactured? They can't be sold. Products sold in Connecticut cannot have PFAS.
Okay.
So, um, so yeah, so that is the answer. So,
Well, for example, like 2 years ago, I went to REI and bought some waterproof rain gear. And I'm assuming from what I had read that probably would have had PFAS in it, but that was before this ban. So does that mean I wouldn't be able to do that now?
I am not sure. Well, I'm not. It's the thing is, so this was passed last year, so it's
Yeah.
probably not in effect yet.
Uh-huh.
So probably no. I mean, and the other thing is, companies can opt out of PFAS. Like, they can actually opt out of, they don't all have to use the same chemical formulations for their products. So you may have gotten something without PFAS in it. It's like, before we banned BPA and things, there people were still they sold BPA free things.
Mhm.
Once the level of public awareness is raised enough about these chemicals, people start opting out, and companies start offering uh, other alternatives.
Okay.
So, and
All right.
that's
Thank
kind of
you.
the concern about this particular bill, is that last year's bill, I don't think is in effect yet. So are they trying to do a carve out to, like, sort of, and once they do one carve out, are they going to try and do more carve outs until we're back to
Probably, yeah.
where we started?
Yes.
So
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Any other questions here? Be glad folks joined us tonight. So we have the public hearing tomorrow. We actually think the PFAS bill might be scheduled for a public hearing next Friday. Like I said, other bills that are important are the public benefits charge bill. Let me talk to you just a little bit about the public benefits charge. iRegen is co-sponsoring a webinar on exactly what that is on February 10th at noon for an hour. The public benefits charge is that charge that you see on your Eversource or your UI bill. And they went up our bills went up very, very high this summer because it coincided with the hottest July on record. So people were really using their air conditioners. Plus, in 2017, the state mandated a deal with the Millstone Power Plant that mandated we pay a certain amount for Millstone Power. And that led to a higher rate not a higher rate, a higher amount this year that than Eversource and UI wanted to collect on. And PURA, the Public Utility Regulatory Agency, decided to make it a 10-month window of collection of those funds versus a 3-year. The chair of PURA wanted to do a 3-year, but she was outvoted. So 10 months, it was a much more concentrated, the rates were higher. The other piece of the public benefits charge that made it more expensive was that Governor Lamont had done a moratorium on COVID non-payment that expired in May. And by federal law, utilities can pass on uncollected payment to their ratepayers. Now, I'm pretty sure that this uncollected payment came from people that went bankrupt, businesses that went out of business, people that moved, people that died. If you still owed money, the moratorium meant your power wouldn't get shut off, but it didn't mean you didn't owe the money. So as soon as the moratorium was ended, people started getting bills. So, but regardless, there was a portion of the public benefits charge that was this uncollected funds. So those two things together constitute, I think, more than 99% of the public benefits charge. So by moving it, the push though is to take it off the ratepayer bill, because people are really feeling the pinch from those high electricity bills, which I get. I mean, those bills are high. They want to put it into the budget. Now, the problem with that is then it exposes the tiny portion, the very tiny portion of the public benefits charge that is the energy efficiency and the clean energy programs. Those programs are beneficial. Those programs help people reduce their energy use, reduce pollution emissions, reduce carbon emissions, improve quality of life, improve their housing, improve their health. Um, those programs are so beneficial. And if you put it in the budget, then it can get cut out of the budget. And it's the only thing that's actually at risk because the millstone charge is state mandated. It is a legal thing. They have to pay it somehow. The non-payment of funds is a federally mandated thing. The state, we Eversource and UI are definitely going to get that money back. The state legislator cannot get out of those two charges. So the only thing they could possibly cut is this thing. And so we cannot allow that. We cannot allow in this day and age to cut our energy efficiency and our clean energy programs when they are helping so many people. So that webinar will be February 10th. And that'll be at noon. Ooh, Allison Korea said, if it's okay for me to add, there's also the Connecticut Environmental Rights Amendment, HJ7, we can support. Yes, the Environmental Rights Amendment. Um, Allison, do you want to tell people about it? Let me see if I can find you in here. Allison, do you want to talk? I don't want to put her on the spot. Hang on, she said. Okay. We are having we're going to have another webinar on Connecticut environmental legislation, which will be an update on all of these bills. Right now it's scheduled for February 18th. I may move it because that might actually be the hearing for the Energy and Technology Committee. And I know I need to be there in person to fight for the energy efficiency and the clean energy programs that have helped so many houses of worship and so many communities around the state. But right now it's scheduled for February 18th, and I hope you'll be able to join us. If not, it'll be actually a little bit earlier than that, and we'll cover this, and we'll cover the climate bill, the resiliency bill, the bills we've already talked about. We will definitely be talking about the environmental rights amendment. And so I'm just waiting for Allison. It's okay. Anyway, any other questions in the middle? Q&A. Here we go. Oh. Suzanne just saying thank you. I know that Connecticut League of Conservation Voters is doing another webinar sort of like this, probably with maybe a little more detail. Oh, Allison's saying, oh, here, let me allow you to talk. Now, if you unmute yourself, there you go, Allison.
Is it working now?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Hello. Yeah, it would just put it in the Constitution that everyone, no matter of race, background, etc., all that, everyone would have a constitutional right to a clean and healthy environment. So I think it's pretty good, pretty solid start.
Yeah, it's great. And when I talked to Kim Stoner about it, she said actually what's being passed now is just basically a right to put it up to the voters. Like the legislatures, all they're doing is passing a bill to put it in front of the voters to add it. So it's not even like if we pass the bill, it's automatically in our Constitution. If we pass the bill, then we get to vote for it. So that's an important point to make if you're testifying is give us the chance to vote for this. Like you're not actually just, these legislators aren't deciding to add an amendment. We are, but we deserve that right to decide if we have a right to a clean and healthy environment, if we have a right to clean water, a right to clean air, because we do. And, it will come up on a referendum in like, or as a ballot initiative during a November election. And I want to say Kim told me if it passes by a certain majority, then it only needs to pass once. If it passes by like just a strict majority, like, just over half or whatever, then it needs to pass twice. So, but again, the actual bill about the environmental rights amendment is really just to be able to have the voters vote on it. And thank you very much. I'm very glad this has been very helpful. Yes, it takes so much longer. It's so much harder to pass a bill than you ever realize. And I'm really glad that everyone was able to join me for this. I will be sending out a link if you want to get some postcards to send to your legislators and the governor. Who, awesome, great, Joe. I'm glad you found this helpful. This is terrific. Any other questions? All right, folks. Thank you so much to everybody for joining. Let's go out there. Let's make a difference. We can do this. We're what we got right now. So let's do this. Thank you so much. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.